Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'll admit I've been spending way too much time online lately, fueled by an incredibly unhealthy amount of coffee, just trying to optimize this ridiculous automated potato farm in Minecraft. But on the bright side, the mindless grinding left me plenty of time to scour Reddit for some absolute gold. Our first story today comes from user Takes2 Totango AITA, and it's titled AITA for telling my brother it takes two to tango. I'll try to keep this as short as I can. Apologies for any spelling mistakes. My 28M older brother Cameron, 34M, has been married to his high school sweetheart Alina since they were both 19. Alina grew up in a very conservative Christian household where she was one of 11 children and her mother stayed at home whilst her father worked to provide for the family. Alina has always wanted to follow in her mother's footsteps and be a stay-at-home parent with a large brood of kids. When my brother Cameron and Alina first announced their engagement, everyone in my family told Cameron that if he really wanted that type of lifestyle with Alina, he would need to work really, really hard, especially in a tough economy. Cameron was not concerned and said he had a plan. To this day, I have no idea what his plan was. Fast forward to now, Alina and Cameron have 5 kids, with a 6th child on the way, but they are struggling a lot financially. He has borrowed money multiple times from my parents, and my parents give in every time because they feel guilty about their grandkids going without. Cameron called me last night to vent about it, saying how he was sick of her and was tired of working his tail off. He confessed to me he is secretly really upset by the news of the 6th child because he was trying to convince Alina to get a job, but now she is pregnant again, there is no way he will be able to convince her. This is where I may be the jerk. I told him that I understood his frustration and his wife was partly to blame, but he knew what Alina wanted, stay-at-home mom with lots of kids, when they got married, and it's not as though he did anything to prevent the 6th child being conceived. He asked me what I meant, and I said, well, it takes 2 to tango. He chewed me out and then hung up. I'm not sure if I was a jerk, but I was only trying to convey that he has some agency in his marriage, and he can't blame the crappy situation entirely on his wife. ADA? Man, I'm exhausted just thinking about having 6 kids. Look, I get that Cameron is stressed out of his mind, but what exactly did he expect? You can't just keep hitting ignore on your life choices and then hit the surprised Pikachu face when your bank account is empty. He knew Alina's dream was to have a massive family since day one, and last I checked, babies don't just magically appear out of thin air. My guy needs to take some actual responsibility instead of projecting all of his poor planning onto his wife. What do you guys think? Was the original poster out of line for giving his brother a harsh reality check, or did Cameron desperately need to hear the truth? Alright, let's keep the momentum going and jump straight into the next one. Have you ever tried to do something genuinely nice for your community, only for one person to completely hijack it for themselves? Because that's exactly what we are dealing with in this post from user vivid_lamp. 4 years ago, I, 52F, created and installed a little box of the little free library at the end of my street corner. And it was quite fun to have such a library. People can bring their books, read from this little library, children exchange comics in this box, and I am replenishing it with books every week due to the boxes I get from the used bookstore for free. 2 months ago, my neighbor Gary began to put into it his books. He made a self-published memoir about his career in sales management, and at the very beginning of this practice, I did not pay much attention to the fact that only 1 copy of his book is put into this box. Then he started to replenish it with piles of his book, sometimes up to 10-12 copies of it, until it became full only with his book. And when children came to find picture books and some readers wanted to read a paperback book during their travel, they saw only piles of the same beige book cover. I kindly asked him to put not more than 1 or 2 copies of his book. He became defensive and stated that that's the whole purpose of the library, to share things, and that I was being controlling regarding my little box. The next time I checked, it was stuffed with his book, but nothing else. So last weekend, I took out all copies of his memoir, put them into a box, left them at his door with a note, and filled the library with actual donations from my collection. Gary is furious. He is saying that I stole his property and embarrassed him, and is spreading the rumor amongst the other neighbors that I am gatekeeping the library and being a control freak regarding his box. My husband is of the opinion that I reacted over the top and could have just piled in some more books without taking out the existing one. My friend Denise says I made the right move because the library is not an individual advertisement board. Gary doesn't want to speak to me anymore, and there is a bit of tension amongst the street group. AITA? Seriously, Gary? A community library is supposed to be a fun place for kids to grab comics or for people to discover a great new novel, not a free marketing stand for your beige corporate sales memoir. I don't blame her for boxing them up. If there was literally no room left for actual books, what else was she supposed to do? What would you guys have done in this situation? Did she overreact by leaving his books on his porch? Or was Gary completely out of line for treating the community library like his personal billboard? All right, let's keep things moving right along before the caffeine crash hits. Have you ever offered a friend a massive favor, only for them to somehow turn it around and hand you a bill for it? Because that is exactly what we are dealing with in our next story from user BowlerLeast3021, titled AITA for refusing to pay my house sitter? A few weeks ago, I, 30F, caught up with a good friend of mine, Jen, 30F. She was telling me about how much of a nightmare her new landlady was. She would enter Jen's room without knocking, she timed her showers, and tried to charge her extra for showers over 5 minutes. Most recently, she installed cameras in the kitchen and living areas and uses them to watch/eavesdrop on the housemates while she's away. Jen said that she had a new place lined up, but had to wait because the room wasn't available for another month. My husband and I just happened to have an upcoming week-long trip planned. I told Jen that if she wanted a break from the nightmare situation, she was welcome to stay at our place while we're away for the week. She gladly accepted. So she arrives on the day we leave. I give her a key, tell her the fridge is full of wine, and to help herself to anything in the kitchen. I showed her how to get onto all our streaming services and said if she wanted to have a friend over, she was welcome to. I trusted her judgment. I told her to have a good time, and we left. We just got back yesterday. A few wine bottles had been opened and finished as expected. The kitchen and floor was a bit of a mess, but overall, everything was fine. I later got a call from Jen asking when I would be transferring her the money for house sitting. I kind of didn't know what to say and paused awkwardly. I said that I thought we were doing her a favor by getting her time away from her house. She told me that her time wasn't free and had expected I'd be paying her something like $500 for the week. I ended the call saying that I'd think about the amount we'd pay her. I'm not sure, but this seems like a bit of a crazy request. I have no pets to feed, no plants to water, and she didn't need to do any housework. I even live like 30 minutes closer to her work, so it even saved her an hour of day in travel. And she wasn't stuck in the house. She was free to come and go as she wanted. Had I not known about her issue with the landlady, I would have just left the house vacant for the week. I texted her this morning mentioning the points above and didn't think it was reasonable that I pay her for what was essentially a break for her. She's furious now, saying that she was depending on having that money. So I'm after your guys' perspective. Ad for refusing to pay for her for staying at my peace. So what do you guys think? Is Jen completely out of touch with reality for demanding $500 after getting a free vacation from her crazy landlord? Or should the original poster have clarified the expectations beforehand? Moving on to the next one. You know, people get strangely intense about their hobbies, but the drama in this next story takes collector obsession to a whole new level. Let's dive into this one from user JumpFinancial4940, titled AITA for stealing a bottle of $700 bourbon from my BIL. So in my 29F family, a few of us drink/collect bourbon, mainly me, my BIL, 33M, and my dad, 60M. Some bottles are extremely rare, expensive, and hard to find, so collectors will line up at stores or attend special events hoping to get one. Last Thanksgiving, a liquor store near my sister and BIL was holding an event with a large number of rare bourbons. Everyone who arrived at 8 a.m. received a number, and numbers were randomly called throughout the morning. When called, you could buy one available bottle at MSRP. Everyone would eventually be called, but earlier numbers had better choices. My BIL was especially excited because he has a huge bourbon collection but has never been able to find a bottle of Pappy. This is kind of like the holy grail of bourbons that all collectors, myself included, would unalive to find a bottle of at this price. I was about 50-50 on going because I also collect bourbon and would unalive for a bottle of Pappy, but I had not fully committed because it was Thanksgiving morning and we had a lot going on at home. At the last minute, my BIL had to work Thanksgiving morning. He asked my sister, who does not care about bourbon, to go in his place and hopefully get the Pappy. She asked me to come so she would not have to attend this whole bourbon circus alone. Since I had already considered going and wanted a chance at a cool bottle for my collection, I went with her. We also invited my dad because he too would unalive to get his own bottle of Pappy, but he thought the whole thing sounded weird and stayed home. My sister and I received numbers 54 and 55. My number was called about 15 people in, and I bought a bottle of Pappy for around $100. It is nearly impossible to find near us and usually sells for $700 plus. My sister was called much later after the Pappy was gone and settled for a bottle of E.H. Taylor, which is good but not nearly as rare or expensive. I was thrilled. This is literally the bottle of a lifetime I never thought I would get. However, when we got home, my BIL immediately said, "That is my bourbon." He believes I went solely as his stand-in, so the Pappy should belong to him. He says I stole the bottle he would have gotten if he had been able to attend. I disagree. I went because I also drink and collect bourbon and wanted a bottle for myself. I never agreed to give him anything I bought. I knew my sister was there specifically for him, but I considered myself an independent participant who is also keeping her company. I could understand his argument if my sister had brought my mom, who could not care less about bourbon, and she happened to get the Pappy. Then she would clearly have been there only as a stand-in. But that was not my situation. My BIL still refers to it as his Pappy and brings up Pappygate whenever possible. So Reddit, AITA, I genuinely did not realize he believed I was attending on his behalf. In his mind, I schemed him out of the one bottle he has wanted for years to complete his collection. Disclaimer, this argument is mostly in good fun, and I love my sister and BIL. I would just like to settle it so I can stop hearing about Pappygate, but when I open this bottle, it will 100% be with him present for the first tasting. Edit. So many more replies than I thought possible. LOL. Tons of people are saying to just drink the bottle with BIL and bury the hatchet. He actually doesn't drink bourbon, he just likes to collect it, so although he'd try it if I open my bottle, finishing the bottle together and having a laugh wouldn't actually do any good because he wanted the unopened bottle for his collection. For the people who are confused about the process, it is essentially a raffle. You get a random number, you aren't switching with people and having a lower, higher number is irrelevant. They call the number and you get to buy one bottle at a lower cost. Finally, I thought this was clear in the post, but no one seems to understand. The entire event was essentially who gets to win the Pappy. Yes, there are other bourbons for later called numbers, but every single person was there for a chance to win the Pappy. Getting called and picking another bottle is actually inconceivable. LMAO, I honestly don't get the he just wants to collect it thing. If you're not going to drink it, does the bottle even exist? Pulling your own winning ticket in a raffle doesn't make you a thief, it makes you lucky. What do you think? Did she truly steal that bottle, or was the brother-in-law out of line for expecting someone else to gift him their own win? Alright, let's keep this train rolling. Sometimes the best people in our lives are the ones who bring a little bit of absolute chaos into the mix. But in our next story from user lividmeasurement5252, that chaos might just be the exact thing tearing a marriage apart. My husband and I have 3 kids, 11M, 6M, and 4F. We have had a nanny, Mila, 21, for almost 2 years. Mila is a ball of chaos. That is the only way I know how to describe her. The girl just screams undiagnosed ADHD. One of my kids and I have ADHD, so speaking from experience here. Some highlights include the last time she called in sick, which was a voicemail 20 minutes before school got out saying, "I don't know exactly what I did to my shoulder, but it hurts like crazy and my arm tingling. The advice people say this is an urgent care issue, so I think I'm going to be a little late." Then there's the time she drove my kids to a Walmart 30 minutes away to get supplies for my oldest school project because none of the nearby Walmarts have all of the supplies. There was a Michael's 3 blocks away that has everything. She just forgot that it was there. She also tends to pick my kids up saying, "I forgot to eat lunch, so who wants fries / a shake / chips / other fast food side?" around once a week. We came home to my entire living room covered in balloons because they decided the dog needed a birthday party. His birthday isn't for 3 months. I came home to Mila sitting on a lawn chair in my driveway while my kids flagged down drivers to buy bracelets, sodas, cookies, and random toys from their rooms. All of these things have happened in the past 6 weeks. You definitely have to be a little flexible to work with her, but all of the kids come back alive, they always have everything they need for school done, and she plans some really fun activities for them. My husband is not as fond of Mila's chaos as I am. He thinks we need a nanny that has more structure, rules, routines, etc., and someone that isn't going to take our kids out to fast food places every week or forget to take the kids to swim class. Only happened once after the swim school changed the classes from Fridays to Wednesdays. I refuse to get rid of Mila. I think she is a great fit for our family and the kids absolutely love the chaos. My husband is upset that I'm not giving him a say in who is caring for our children, although he's been fine with her for the past 2 years and absolutely nothing has changed with her. He's been complaining about minor things lately, like the car being a little messy, about as messy as my car, and has been bringing up profiles for other babysitters, mostly older women or young men. The only thing that I can think of that could have caused this is my older son mentioning once that Mila is really pretty, and an incident where we took a family vacation, he didn't want to share a bed with his brother, and he suggested that he share Mila's bed because she doesn't fart. Mila shut that down before he even finished his sentence. But that stopped after I talked to him about him being 11 and Mila being an adult. So, what is your take on this whole situation? Do you think the husband is overreacting and suddenly trying to fire her just because his 11-year-old son has a crush on the nanny? Or is the wife being totally unfair by dismissing his completely valid concerns about the daily chaos? All right, let's keep it moving. Sometimes spending hours scrolling through this site makes you realize just how completely unhinged some family dynamics can be. You try to do something incredibly nice, and suddenly you're getting yelled at for breaking a rule from the 1950s. Let's dive into this next post from user throwra1924857. So I'll first preface with this with the following. My girlfriend and I are both 22, and we just both graduated college this past spring. My girlfriend's parents have been separated for quite some time, and I interact with her mom far more than her biological dad. For reasons I won't get into, she doesn't really like her dad either, but does talk to him frequently and wants to someday heal their relationship. We met in undergrad and decided to celebrate our accomplishments with a vacation. So a few months back, I got a slip in the mail from Royal Caribbean saying that because I gambled X amount of dollars on my last cruise that I took with my parents, I qualified for a special rate cruise for myself. Well, initially, I just planned on discarding it, but my girlfriend was over and was like, "Oh, a cruise sounds fun." And she also mentioned how she never did anything like that growing up. Later that day, I was curious to see the true final price, and I crunched the numbers to see what a real cost for the trip would be. I talked to her mom and told her the idea, and she just loved it. She was happy to know how much I care about her daughter. Seriously, her mom is the best. Well, fast forward a couple weeks and a few overtime shifts, and I booked a cruise. I planned on surprising my girlfriend with it the day of our graduation as sort of a fun way to celebrate our accomplishments. Obviously, she was thrilled to the moon about it and has been looking forward to it ever since. Last night, my girlfriend and I went out to dinner with her dad, as this is really the only time she ever does anything with him. Obviously, she was really excited about our upcoming trip and told him all about it. Well, he sort of came unglued. He told me that he would have loved to have been asked for permission before I took his daughter halfway across the world. Let's be real, it's a freaking Bahamas cruise, not a trip to Egypt. I was sort of caught off guard and told him something along the lines of, I figured since we're both adults, I wouldn't need to ask for such a thing. Clearly, he didn't appreciate it. He ended up deciding that he wasn't hungry anymore, told the server to cancel his order, and walked out right then and there. Obviously now I think I have a pretty good feeling that I'm not in the wrong here, but curious, is this some sort of societal norm I should have known, or is he just being overly and inappropriately protective? Canceling his dinner order and storming out of a restaurant over a cruise? Talk about major main character syndrome. They are 22-year-old college graduates paying their own way, not middle schoolers going on a weekend field trip. Plus, he already ran the idea by her mom and got her blessing, which honestly seems like all he really needed to do anyway. The dad just sounds bitter that he doesn't have total control. What do you guys think? Is there some hidden societal rule about asking a dad's permission for a vacation, or is this guy just being way too controlling over his adult daughter? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. All right, moving right along to our next one. You know, they say marriage is all about teamwork and compromise, but what happens when your teammate absolutely fails at their one and only job? This hilarious story comes to us from user JakeBFishin_, and it's titled AITA for firing my wife from being my fast food order checker. Let's get right into it. My wife and I have an unspoken system. I drive, she checks the bag before we leave the drive-thru because, according to her, they always forget something. The problem is, she never actually checks the bag. She'll grab it, peek inside for maybe half a second, say, yep, we're good, and hand it to me. This has resulted in missing fries, missing sauces, the wrong drink, a burger that had literally nothing on it except the bun and patty, one memorable occasion where they forgot my entire meal. Last week, we got home, and once again, my order was wrong. I looked at her and said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to let you go. We're moving your position to Quality Assurance Consultant. Effective immediately, I will be checking the bags. She laughed. Until I made a fake termination letter when we got home that cited repeated failure to identify missing nuggets. I even gave her a tiny severance package, a ketchup packet, and a coupon for a free Frosty. She says I'm ridiculous and has informed me she's no longer speaking to HR, me. I maintain that if your only job is to check the bag, you should probably check the bag. So, AITA for demoting my wife from official bag checker? Honestly, writing up a fake termination letter and handing over a ketchup packet as severance is top-tier comedy. But if you thought this corporate restructuring was over, you are so wrong. Here is the update. My wife has been reinstated as official bag checker. First, thanks for all the comments. I did not expect so many people to have strong opinions about drive-thru quality control. LOL. After reading everyone's feedback, I decided to give my wife another chance. We established a Performance Improvement Plan, PIP. The terms were simple. Open the bag. Actually look inside the bag. Count the nuggets. Verify the fries exist. Confirm my sandwich resembles what I ordered. Yesterday, we went through a drive-thru to test the new system. She opened the bag, spent a solid 20 seconds inspecting everything like she was performing a federal audit, and proudly announced, "Everything's here." I was impressed. We got home. My snack wrap wasn't in the bag. Not the wrong snack wrap, no snack wrap. Just no snack wrap. She looked at me and said, well, technically everything that was in the bag was correct. I couldn't even argue with that. So after extensive negotiations, she has officially been rehired as official bag checker with one condition. I now serve as assistant bag checker and perform a secondary inspection before we leave the parking lot. HR has concluded that we will now be implementing a strict no departure without visual confirmation policy moving forward. Also, the ketchup packet severance has been rescinded. I am absolutely dying at her logic. Technically, everything that was in the bag was correct. I mean, she is not wrong, but she should honestly be a lawyer with that kind of loophole thinking. Stepping down to assistant bag checker is probably the only way these two are ever going to get a complete meal again. What do you guys think? Should she have been permanently fired for missing the snack wrap during her probationary period, or was her defense actually kind of brilliant? Drop your verdict down in the comments. And on to the next one. It's always wild to me when someone expects a yes to a week-long guest stay at a place that isn't even theirs, especially when they haven't been paying the rent. We've got a classic boundary setting drama here from user extreme_eb4319 titled AITA for saying no to my girlfriend's friend staying with us for a week at our rented lake house. My girlfriend and I rented a lake house for about 1.5 months. It's expensive, and I pay a larger share of the cost. I'm also an entrepreneur, so I'm still working long days while we're here. One of the main reasons we rented this place was so I could work and actually have some peace and quiet afterward. Tonight, my girlfriend's friend called asking if she could stay with us for a week, this week, because she's stressed after moving in with her boyfriend and sister and wants somewhere to relax. I said I wasn't comfortable with a week, but suggested 2 to 3 days instead. My reasons? It's our vacation, not a free Airbnb. I need my own space after work. We only have one car, and she'd need us to do 2 2-hour trips to pick her up and bring her home, about 8 hours of driving total. There's also some history. Her friend is nice enough, but she's very opinionated about some issues. I've made comments in my own home that my girlfriend later mentioned to her, and it ended up creating tension between my girlfriend and me because she strongly disagreed. She also tends to complain a lot, so I'm not excited about living together for a week. What makes this feel inconsistent is that when I wanted my brother or cousin to visit for a couple of days just to hang out, my girlfriend was hesitant because there wasn't a special reason. I respected that. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say no to a week-long stay from one of her friends. I wasn't saying she couldn't come, I just thought a week was too much and offered 2 to 3 days as a compromise. My girlfriend thinks I'm being selfish because her friend needs a break. AITA? I mean, 8 hours of total driving just to accommodate a guest you didn't invite? That is a massive ask. Plus, if the girlfriend blocked his own family members from visiting for much less, it seems pretty hypocritical to demand he open the doors for a week for her friend who has a history of causing friction. Is he being selfish, like his girlfriend claims, or is he completely justified in setting boundaries for his own workspace and vacation time? And on to the next one. You really have to be careful with how you present these kinds of things because what seems like a simple, hey, look at this deal, can turn into a full-blown argument in 2 seconds flat. Let's get into this post from user HolyBayJesus23 titled AITA for sending my GF an Amazon ad for a plus-size bathing suit. So I may have screwed up a bit today. I, 33M, sent my GF, 30F, an ad for a bathing suit and asked her, if I bought this for you, would you wear it? She immediately asked if I was calling her fat and wanted to know why I sent her a plus-size bikini ad. Now, for context, my girlfriend is not fat. She is a healthy weight, maybe just slightly over, but I really can't say much because I'm overweight myself. The truth is, I just really love seeing her in bright colors and wanted to find her a nice bikini since she doesn't have any. I typed pink and green bikini into the Amazon search bar. The first ad I saw was $34. Then I scrolled down and saw one featuring a plus size model that was half the price of the first one. Without thinking, I just grabbed the link to the cheaper one, sent her the ad, and asked if she'd wear it. I didn't even register what the ad said. I was just looking at the colors and the price tag. Now she thinks I'm making a dig at her weight. I tried showing her the first ad I looked at to prove that the actual dimensions and sizing numbers are exactly the same on both listings. The only difference was the model in the picture and the wording of the ads. She hasn't answered me yet, and now I'm stuck waiting. I honestly can't tell if she was just teasing me or if she is genuinely upset. What should my next move be here? Do I leave it alone or send a follow-up? Honestly, this is a textbook case of a total brain fart that definitely didn't need to happen. But hey, it turns out she's a lot more forgiving than he thought. Here's how it all played out in the update. Update. She was a little upset, but mostly chalked it up to me being dumb. Accurate. She also said she'd wear if I buy it, and if she doesn't like it, I'll never see it on her again. I mean, she's right. It was pretty dumb, but at least they managed to avoid a massive blowout. It just goes to show that if you're going to send a link, maybe double check the thumbnail image before you hit send. Have you ever accidentally offended your partner with a completely innocent mistake like this? Let me know your funniest, I totally didn't mean it that way stories down in the comments. Alright, moving right along. We've all dealt with picky eaters, but what happens when an entire family treats flavor like it's some kind of optional add-on? Our next story comes from user Yiggity_Yag, and it's titled AITA for seasoning the food I cooked? My wife's family is the stereotypical white family that doesn't season food. For the record, I'm white too, so this isn't a cultural thing. My mother-in-law is incredibly kind and cooks dinner for us often since we live nearby. The only issue is that the food is usually very plain. Think Cornish hens with no seasoning, mashed potatoes that are literally just mashed potatoes with no butter, cream, sour cream, chives, or anything else mixed in, and thin, well-done steaks that look like they came off one of those $40 for 20 cuts of meat truck sales. Their family philosophy is that everyone seasons their own food after it's on their plate. They'll add country crock to the potatoes, salt and pepper, or dip meat into A1 ketchup or B BQ sauce. One time my mother-in-law was taking plain chicken breasts out to the grill, and I asked if I could season mine before it was cooked. She didn't seem offended at all and let me. My wife, however, thought it was rude. My thinking was that seasoning belongs on the food before it's cooked so it has a chance to develop flavor instead of just sitting on top afterward. More recently, I offered to make BBQ wings for everyone. I seasoned the wings with garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, salt, and pepper, grilled them, tossed them in BBQ sauce, then put them back on the grill so the sauce caramelized onto the wings. As I brought them inside, my brother-in-law had brought his own bottle of BBQ sauce. That immediately made me wonder if he had assumed I was making plain wings that everyone could sauce themselves. Out of roughly 50 wings for 6 adults, he ate maybe 2, his wife had 1, my father-in-law had 3, and my mother-in-law didn't have any. We took a ton of leftovers home. On the drive home, my wife said she was surprised my wings weren't more popular. I mentioned that maybe her brother expected plain wings because he brought his own BBQ sauce. She got upset and asked why I had sauced everyone's wings instead of leaving them plain. I said that if I invite people over for BBQ wings, I assume that means wings that are already coated in BBQ sauce, not plain wings with bottles of sauce on the table. She disagreed and said I should have let everyone sauce them however they wanted. She ended the conversation by saying I should probably just avoid cooking for her parents again because clearly no one likes the way you cook. I'm sorry, but if you invite me over for BBQ wings and then make me dip plain, unseasoned chicken into a bottle of sauce, I am judging you. Cooking is about building flavor, not just heating up protein so you can dunk it in ketchup later. The wife's family sounds like they're living in a world where spices don't exist, and honestly, that sounds like a miserable way to live. Is there any world where BBQ wings means plain chicken with a bottle of sauce on the side? Or was the user completely right to cook them the way wings are actually supposed to be made? Tell me I'm not crazy and let me know your take in the comments. All right, let's keep this moving. Family dynamics are tricky enough as it is, but throw a high-risk pregnancy and some major boundary issues into the mix, and you've got a recipe for disaster. This story comes to us from user GlassLass, and it's titled, "A It for Telling My Brother and Sil Not to Come to a Family Gathering." I, 31 feature, am 8 months pregnant with a high-risk pregnancy. I could go into labor any day now. I have a younger brother, YB 27, and an older brother, OB 33. OB is married with a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. We rarely see OB's family for a few reasons. They live 45 minutes away, OB doesn't drive, and public transit with toddlers is hard. His wife has CPTSD from childhood trauma, is deeply suspicious of us, and keeps her distance. She is also a doctor and fiercely protective of her kids. We all try our best to respect her boundaries. OB is an undiagnosed autistic. He's brilliant, but has the emotional maturity of a toddler. He cannot handle any criticism and gets easily offended. We grew up very close, and I spent my life acting as his emotional regulator. Now he only calls me when he needs emotional support or cuts contact for weeks. The situation. YB planned his 27th birthday party at our parents' house. We were thrilled because OB's kids have almost never been there. However, the morning of the party, OB called our mom saying his son had a fever. Mom initially told him to stay home to protect me and our older parents. An hour later, OB called back crying and begging for a ride anyway, claiming it was just a small fever. Feeling guilty, my mom actually drove all the way to get them before calling to ask my opinion. I told her it was a terrible idea. It left me with 3 options: complicate my high-risk pregnancy even more, skip the party and isolate from my newly contagious family, dangerous if I go into early labor, or make everyone upset by telling them to stay home. My mom didn't want to be the bad guy, so I called OB to express my discomfort. His wife intercepted the phone and said that, as a doctor and a mom, she understood, but since I was the one at risk, I should stay home and miss the party. She passive-aggressively asked, "So, do you prefer we don't come?" I said yes, and she hung up. OB said nothing. Immediately after hanging up, my brother had a full-blown meltdown. He called my mom, who was already waiting in her car outside their house, started yelling, and accused her of ruining everything. I think deep down he knew that if the roles were reversed, there is no way in hell they would let me near them with a fever. Mom turned around and came home. We had a lovely party without them, but now OB and his wife are furious at everyone. OB is giving me the silent treatment and only calling our parents to scold them. Honestly, the sheer selfishness here is staggering. A doctor who knows better, trying to push past a fever during someone's high-risk pregnancy, that is absolutely not okay. It sounds like the original poster has spent her whole life being her brother's emotional punching bag, and it's about time she started prioritizing her own health and her baby's safety. Do you think the original poster was wrong for setting that boundary? Or were her brother and his wife completely out of line for trying to bring a sick toddler to a party involving a high-risk pregnancy? All right, moving on to the next one. We've all had friends who say things they later regret, but some lines you just don't cross, especially when it involves your personal safety and outing you to your own unsupportive family. This rough situation comes to us from user do_function_9767, titled AITA for unforgiving my friend after a social experiment with us went viral. I, 22M, had a friend, 23F, Lindsay, for years. I recently introduced her to my other friend, 21F, Olivia. We went out for drinks, and me and Olivia were giggling. Lindsay said, "I ship you both." I laughed and said, "What?" She said, "You guys are flirting." I told her I'm gay. She said, "What? You're gay? No way. I always wanted a gay bestie anyway." I said I keep it quiet because my parents don't support gay people. She said, "Okay." We left the bar, Lindsay was tipsy, and we were going to go to McDonald's. A group of guys approached her and said, "You single?" She said, "No." He said, "You sure? I have a Tesla." She said, "Yeah, my 6 boyfriends wouldn't like that." They said, "What about your chubby friend? She's fine too," talking about Olivia. She said, "My chubby friend is too good for you. She owns 6 Teslas." He said, "Okay, but is she single though? I got $1 million in savings." She said, "No, but he is. You seem like you like it up the back. He'll give it to you." They started laughing. I said, "This is why I didn't tell you I'm gay," and walked away. She followed after me. She was laughing, saying the joke turned to them making fun of their friend for being gay, rather than being weird to her and Olivia. I said, "Yeah, but I only just told her I'm gay, and she's already made fun of me in front of people." She said, "I'm really sorry. You just seem really straight. It surprised me. I'm sorry." It then went quiet. She left shortly after, and Olivia and I just hung out on our own. She then messaged me saying, "Hi, I just want to say I'm really sorry. I didn't think before I was speaking. I love you, Diva. You're my best friend. I'd never want to hurt you." I had forgiven her. I said, "It's okay. I overreacted. Those guys were total weirdos. Understandable you wanted to make fun of them. I think we were both a bit drunk, and you said things without thinking, and I got a bit over-emotional. Love you, diva. Kiss, kiss." After that, it was fine. Until these past few days. A clip from a YouTube video has gone round. It's of our interaction. It was a social experiment to see who could pick up the most girls in 24 hours. It became a theme throughout the whole video after our section that one guy got half a point for picking up a man. With my face being shown, people were finding it really funny in the comments of the YouTube videos and the clips on Shorts and TikToks. It got sent to me and Lindsay by people that recognized us, and it even got back to my family. They're so upset, asking why she would say I do that with them. Lindsay has been sending me clips of it that has come up on her For You page. I told her I'm really upset. She apologized again, and I said I don't forgive her. She said she thought I did, and I said, well, I don't anymore. I take it back. Now everyone knows I'm gay, even my parents, because of her. She said she's sorry, and I said I'm glad, but I want a break now. She's respected that. But Olivia's saying I was too harsh and Lindsay didn't mean it or know it was filmed and it's the guy's fault, not hers. Honestly, this is absolutely infuriating. She didn't just make an insensitive joke in the moment. She effectively outed him to his family, which is a massive betrayal of trust. The fact that it went viral and caused real-world consequences for his safety and family relationship isn't something he can just forgive and forget because she sent a text. Do you think he was being too harsh by taking back his forgiveness after the video went viral? Or is he completely right to cut ties with her for outing him? Man, some stories on here just make your skin crawl. Imagine cutting someone off for nearly 2 decades, only to come back and start treating their home like a personal surveillance operation. Let's dive into this one from user opposite-meringue610, titled, AITA for not forgiving my stepdaughter after she slandered me to my friends and makes harassing phone calls. My husband has an adult daughter from a previous marriage. Years ago, she sent messages to my friends that I am a horrible person, evil, nasty, and abusive. I have only interacted with her a few times. She lives across the country. And she was in her 30s and living on her own when I married her father. All my interactions with her have been warm and polite. I considered her family, but she had a falling out with her father one day and stopped talking to both of us, and her little half-sister too, my biological daughter, who was 11 at the time, for 17 years. My husband reached out to her several times, but she ignored him. She also denied her little half-sister's friend request on social media. She was high school age at the time. Eventually, my husband stopped reaching out and made peace that she is gone forever and was angry that she acted like he did not exist, and especially due to the reason why. The falling out was due to my husband's son passing away, and his daughter, the one I don't want to forgive, only cared about the joint investments she had with her deceased brother. My husband got disgusted at her lack of care that he just lost a son and she a brother, and told her off and hung up on her. That was the last time they ever spoke, although he sent her several nice messages and letters to her in the years afterwards, to no avail. Then one day, 17 years later, we get a phone call from her. She was warm and friendly and acted like she hadn't wiped me, her father, and her little sister from the face of her earth for almost 2 decades. My husband was distant to her at first, just exchanging basic pleasantries and making it clear that he has been doing just fine without her despite her coldness and abandonment for almost 20 years. But she kept calling regularly and then started calling with stories of health problems, not having enough money, marital problems, and things that happened to her in childhood, all of which she would later say the opposite of. She calls her father's and my phone up to 12 times a day, nearly every single day, and has sent the police to our house for a welfare check several times, all because we did not answer her calls. Even when we did answer her calls, or would tell the police that we are fine and to pass that along to her, she sends the police back to our house a mere few days later. I tell my husband that it's wrong and abusive, and he gets angry at me and says that his daughter just cares and is worried about us. Yet he talks to her almost every day, yet she still accuses him of not liking her and lying to her and sends the police to our house. She texts me threats and says I am keeping her father from her, which isn't true. I always let him know when she calls. For all those reasons and more, I want nothing to do with her. My husband gets very angry and calls me cruel and says I am disrespecting him by refusing to talk to her and forgive her. Honestly, weaponizing the police because you aren't getting your way isn't caring. It's harassment, plain and simple. It's wild that the husband is choosing to enable this behavior instead of protecting his own peace and his wife's sanity. Does the husband have his head in the clouds, or is the wife actually being cruel here? How would you handle a situation where a step-family member starts calling the cops on you for no reason? Give me your take in the comments. So I stumbled across this one, and it's a tough spot to be in. Imagine having to make the hardest choice for your family's survival, only for everyone around you to act like you're the villain for it. This comes from user no_estimate9469 on r/amItheasshole, titled AITA for moving my kids into a house with strict rules. I'm a single parent to 2 kids, 5F and 8M. A few weeks ago, my kids and I moved in with my friend, her husband, and their kids, 10F, 7F, 4F, 3F, after my kids' dad stopped paying child support and I could no longer afford to stay in our house. My friend moved my daughter into her younger 2 kids' room, gave my son her husband's office, and I'm in the guest room. Both rooms have been set up for the kids. They're in between nannies at the moment and are allowing me to use the nanny's car so I can sell my car to pay off some debt. My friend is a bit more strict than I am, especially in 2 areas: screen time and car seats. I didn't really have screen time rules for my kids. I would monitor but didn't have set rules about time limits. My friend only allows screen time for an hour a day on weekends plus family movie night on Fridays. She also has YouTube blocked on nearly every device in the house, and most video games are banned. She has plenty of toys, there's a massive swing set in the backyard, they have a membership to an athletic club with 4 pools, and their house is on a lake. We're a 5-minute walk from the beach. As for car seats, I had allowed my son to stop using a booster seat, and I let my daughter ride in a high-backed booster. My friend says that while we're using her car, my son needs to be in a booster and my daughter needs a car seat. She provided the seats. Her house is more strict than ours overall. All of the kids have chores and there's a lot more structure than we're used to. The kids, especially my son, are struggling to adjust. They say they hate it here, they hate my friend, and they want to go live with their dad or my parents. Some other friends and my family think that if the kids are miserable, I should find some other living arrangements for us and figure out a way to make it work. I'm not planning to be here for long. Hopefully we'll be on our feet by the end of the summer. I've already promised that we'll be out by October. I think they can survive 3.5 months of stricter rules and routines, but nearly everyone else thinks I should figure out alternate living arrangements to make the kids happy. AITA for keeping them in a house that they hate living in. Honestly, this just sounds like a parent doing what they absolutely have to do to keep a roof over their children's heads. Kids complaining about car seats and screen time limits is just kids being kids. Stability, safety, and having a home is way more important than avoiding a few months of, I hate this house whining. Is she being the asshole for prioritizing financial survival over her kids' immediate happiness? Or are her friends completely out of line for expecting her to just conjure up a new living situation out of thin air? Look, we've all been there. You want a vacation to actually feel like a vacation, but you end up trapped in a travel style that just doesn't vibe with yours. It's a recipe for resentment. This situation comes to us from user nervosny_kivit on r/amItheasshole, titled, Because I Don't Want to Travel Anymore with My Friend. Over the past year, I, 30-year-5, and my friend, 31-and-5, have been on 2 trips together, each lasting 5 days. On both trips, I was the one who lowered my standards for the sake of our friendship. I accepted lower quality accommodation, sharing a room and bathroom, and later staying in a studio apartment, even though I would have much preferred having my own room. I agreed to eat at restaurants with limited menus where meals were around 15 euros, and we mostly went to bars with the cheapest alcohol because I wanted to accommodate her and her budget. After all of that, I constantly had to listen to her saying how much money she had spent, how financially drained she was, how everything was expensive, how she had no money left, and so on. It makes me feel bad for two reasons. First, because I didn't prioritize my own comfort even though I could have afforded to and should have. Second, because I feel like she's making me feel guilty about money even though I never pressured her to spend beyond her means. I also suggested that if there were things we wanted to do separately, we could split up for an hour or two each day so we could each enjoy the activities that interested us. Unfortunately, that wasn't an option for her. She's already planning a third trip together, but I don't want to travel like this anymore. Tried to tell her indirectly that I'm not traveling anymore. She just laughed because she knows I live and work for travel. I absolutely love culture, history, architecture, museums, and food. When I travel somewhere new, I really immerse myself in the destination. I spend weeks researching it beforehand, and that preparation makes the whole experience even more meaningful. I usually visit 1 or 2 museums or attractions every day when I travel. On our last 2 trips, I visited only 1 museum in total. I also love cooking, so I really enjoy exploring different restaurants and trying as many dishes as possible. Some of the meals I discover while traveling end up becoming part of my regular cooking repertoire at home. Honestly, travel is way too expensive and precious to spend it feeling like you're compromising your entire personality just to keep the peace. If you want a cultural experience and she just wants to complain about being broke at a cheap bar, you two are just fundamentally incompatible as travel buddies. Life's too short for bad trips. Would you guys just rip the band-aid off and tell her flat out that you aren't compatible travel partners? Or is there a way to save the friendship without going on another miserable vacation? Sound off in the comments.